The last Liberal convention came just 6 months after the party's stunning and historic return to power.
Canadians responded to the plan we built because they saw themselves in it.
Now, Justin Trudeau and Liberal supporters are building again, hoping to put another winning plan in front of Canadians 20 months from now. But that may be more of a challenge.
All right, everybody ready?
It's not going to be the happy exercise that it was in 2015. This time, all these people have to go to doors and explain why the government has been doing what it's been doing. It was on the offensive in 2015. It's going to be on the defensive in 2019.
The convention in Halifax is the last big gathering for Liberals from across Canada before the next election. A chance to debate policy, to hear directly from the leader, and to focus on winning.
When you have, a few thousand Liberals gathered in a room, it's a great chance for that captured audience to get the key messages that they can use over the next year and a half.
The 2015 message of real change and sunny ways was supported by 80,000 Liberal volunteers and $43 million in spending. That produced 184 seats and nearly 40% of the popular vote. The Liberals kept that healthy lead in polls until earlier this year.
Now we've learned that his corporate boss was invited along on the Prime Minister's trip.
But lately, national surveys suggest the Conservatives have closed the gap and the Prime Minister's appeal has slipped. And mostly because of one event. That trip to India in February. Criticism of the Prime Minister for repeatedly wearing traditional Indian dress. The invitation to Jaspal Atwal, a convicted attempted murderer, to attend official events. And the ensuing controversy over who was to blame.
Coinciding with his trip to India, we started to see his personal numbers move down. And in today's politics, leadership is so tied to the performance of the government that you almost can't separate the two.
The India trip produced unflattering headlines around the world for a government and a Prime Minister trying to raise Canada's international profile.
It didn't seem that he was representing Canada well. I think being made fun of, ridiculing him was something that I think people didn't react well to, because for the longest time, if you voted for Mr. Trudeau, or even if you didn't, you still liked the fact that Canada had attention.
There'll be a lot of questions from the rank and file of the party of why it happened and why it happened this way. There is a perception, and I believe it's a fair one, that a lot of the issues around this government have been self-inflicted.
I think, as with every government, there's a disconnect between the Prime Minister's office and the grassroots. That's been going on as long as I've been covering Liberal Party conventions.
All those in favor of the resolution?
Any evidence of that disconnect between the grassroots and the Prime Minister's office will likely show up on the convention floor, where delegates consider some 20 to 30 resolutions.
Hey, Trudeau! Kinder Morgan's got to go! Hey.
One calls for oil and gas independence and the development of more infrastructure and pipelines, even as protests continue abroad and at home over federal support for the proposed Trans Mountain expansion.
Please remove her.
Any government that governs over an extended period of time is going to make some enemies or people upset with some of the decisions they've made. And I think on the energy and economy, energy and the environment file, it's become a highly polarized debate.
Another debate could come with a resolution calling for universal pharmacare, since the finance minister has suggested prescription drug coverage only for those Canadians without private drug plans.
There are parts of the system that are working well. There are parts of the system that really aren't working well.
Liberals will also use this weekend to talk about getting campaign ready with more fundraising, better organization, and modern age tactics. All with the goal of making sure that historic win in 2015 doesn't turn into a historic collapse in 2019.
I think they're going to be tough to beat in 2019. Any incumbent government is, but we're starting to see evidence that they're not unbeatable, and perhaps things do stick to Mr. Trudeau and his government.
The party is not at all the decrepit, sad vehicle that it was in the Harper years.
We will always stand up for Canadians.
It hasn't been a great past few months for Justin Trudeau, but the party is still not in bad shape.